All right, everyone, back for another episode of the 21 AVAs. Today we're heading to the Royal Slope AVA. Really fun, established in 2020. I am here with Caleb Foster once again. How are we doing today, Caleb?
Doing great, Ryder. Doing great. How you doing, pal?
Not bad, not bad. It's heating up out there. I think it's supposed to be 72 in Tri-Cities today. So
yeah, it's
crazy.
Really
4
feels
days
like
ago,
spring outside.
Welcome to Eastern Washington, right? We have this really cool thing that happens here where you have your heater on one day and you have your AC on the next day. We're going to be tasting some fun wines today. A wine from who's the producer today, Caleb?
Yeah, and these guys are a state giving us a beautiful select reserve of theirs. This is a 2022 from the Royal Slope that we're talking about, and it's a Roussane, single varietal, single vineyard. From Corfu Crossing. They've got a bunch of vineyards up on the Royal Slope.
That they do. You have Corfu Crossing that we just mentioned that this wine's from, Scarline, Lorena Blanca, Laura Lee, Soliskin, Thunderstone, Stone Ridge, and Boneyard. So the Lawrence family has quite a few vineyards in Washington State. Caleb and I have a history with Connerly Vineyard, fantastic place to grow wine. But today we're tasting that Roussane, and so this should be pretty fun. A fun fact about this wine is that this was on Decanter's top 50 wines of the United States. And I believe, I wasn't able to find, but I believe it was number 5, if I remember right. So,
wow.
Pretty nice. Cheers. Matthias is the winemaker out here and viticulturalist, and so,
yeah.
Way to go, Matthias. Yeah.
Yeah. They've got a very, great drive, great intensity, always a focus on super high quality. And immediately, this wine really leaps out a lot of concentration, intensity, a lot of density to me. The strong aromatic, strong flowers, and very intense ripe fruit. Now, 2022, I want to say something about the vintage, was an interesting year. I'd gone up to the Yakima Valley to make wine up here, and it was a flowering that happened around the solstice, and that means late, the third week of June. And it was because it was very cool April. We actually had snow in the last days of April, the first days of May. Didn't last. It was a couple hours up here in Yakima, but it was that cool. And so flowering was greatly delayed. And when flowering is that delayed, it means you will not be harvesting for 100 to 110 days. It's just the nature of the genetics of Vitis vinifera that it will ripen at a certain rate of time. And that time is, for Chardonnay, about 95 days. For Cabernet, classically 110 days. You're not going to ripen sooner, not even in the heat.
Is there no variation to that?
There's a bit of variation, yes.
Yeah.
But it's not like you can speed it up like you can run a faster 4-minute mile. No, the genetics of the plant is driven through a harmony to a narrow band of time frame. And so what it means is when you flower at a certain date, you can pencil in your harvest. And it meant that we were dialing the clock around the ripening date around later into October. That was normal the way we were raised in the 80s and 90s. But when you ripen for certain only in October, it means that you are in the face of frost and colder weather, and you may not make it. So there was this anxiety to me of like, wow, we better have a clear, lovely fall, and we did. That's the hook, is that 2022 delivered beautifully. We had incredible weather in September and October, beautiful warmth and dry, just delivered a beautiful ripening window right past Halloween. It was November 3rd, we had our first frost. So
all right, I'm going to get into some stats of the AVA and the producer here in a second, but Caleb just provided a whole slew of questions for me. So I'm going to start firing them off here. So if you're saying that, let's just say for Cab, I believe you said 110 days for ripeness, más o menos, more or less. All right, so why then, when you say 110 days to ripeness, what is the factor of ripeness? Are we talking about sugar and acid levels? Is that sugar and acid, because obviously there's pick decisions. Some people pick at 24 Brix. Brix is the amount of sugar in a plant. Basically, a Brix equals about 1%, right? Yeah, so 24 Brix is 24% sugar inside of that. So are you saying that in 110 degrees you hit X Brix, and obviously acid changes with each one of those? Or are you saying at 110 days, that's when you have flavor ripeness? So just for clarification.
No, what I'm saying is that The Vitis vinifera Cabernet Sauvignon, for instance, has a genetic tendency to ripen in 110 days. If the weather is cold, it will take longer. If the weather is particularly warm and advantageous to its being faster, it might get to an equivalent quality of physiological development of ripeness. Let's just use one word, ripeness, of being ripe at 105 days. But you and I might walk up to the plant at 100 days and say, "Oh, it tastes good, not bad. It's dark, it's purple, it's blue, black. It looks and tastes good. It tastes sweet. Everything seems good." In 10 days, it will have more of its character built into it, but it's perfectly lovable at 100 days. Now, at 125 days, 15 or 25 days later, the fruit is still good. It looks good. It's not raisined. Everything's fine. It looks lovely. But it is also changing. And so there's two ways to look at this. You were talking about technicalities, sugar and acid. We can talk about that. But before we get there, I always like to talk about this one thing about how we decide about wine. And that is, remember, before we had all the tools, before Louis Pasteur, before all the germ theory and all the measurements of wine and alcohol and all the things, as humans, we knew what was ripe. And we were making wine. We knew what was right. As a child, we all have memories of going up and eating a green bean or some summer vegetables or some fall fruit and knowing no one needs to tell us that it tastes good and that's a ripe fruit. We know the difference on the tree or on the vine or on the bush between the ripe and the unripe fruit. No one needs to tell us. That is the same quality of ripeness that I'm talking about. Now, want to get technical, we can get deep down that rabbit hole. It is a long rabbit hole. Vitis vinifera genetically ripens in a time frame. And so when you flower late, you ripen late.
Okay. Yeah, this is my perfect plug for like and subscribe. And if you'd like to see an episode where we talk about the ripening factor of grapes and this deep rabbit hole that we can dive down, because honestly what he just said just makes me want to ask a dozen more questions, but for the sake of this video and keeping it focused on the AVA and this producer, I'm not going to go down the rabbit hole too much on that one, because I think there's some interesting things that are happening here that are triggering some things in my mind that I'd like to know more about in terms of Caleb's expertise. But I think one of the key factors of what he just said here is the way that clock shifts and moves around when you think about it of a two dot points on a circle, right? And the 365 days of the year that go around there. When it shifts this way, that then pushes ripening to a later date. And in eastern Washington, in our northern hemisphere where we land, that tends to give us a very long growing day. I mean, the days are shortening at that point. But it also gives us huge diurnal shifts. So when you're ripening in mid-September to mid-October versus mid-August to mid-September, we're talking about a dramatically different weather. For those of you that don't live in eastern Washington, we have usually, at any point anymore, we're talking about 3 to 4 weeks plus of 100-degree days. And some of those can land in August. And so when you've gone through veraison and you're going through ripening and you're in the middle of August, that produces a very, very different fruit than if you're starting your ripening and veraison in early September and then ripening in the middle of September kind of thing. Not that veraison really goes that far, but when you shift that ripening cycle, you're looking at a very different grape expression than a different vintage. And that triggers not because of the heat throughout the year, like Caleb's pointing out, that it's not because of the heat, it's not because of the weather, it's because of when the grape flowered, when the fruit set happened. Yeah. Okay, cool.
Yeah, so as a footnote, exactly right on that point. 2011 and 2022 were almost the same flowering schedule at the solstice in June. The wines from 2011, 2022 are so different because 2011 was cold. It never got over 85 degrees in Walla Walla the whole summer. And on 4th of July, I remember I took a picture on my cell phone. It was 84 degrees. It was like, what? Or maybe not over 90. It was like 88. But anyway, it was super cool. And in 2022, we did get warmer. So you have the same flowering date, but the generosity of heat impact was warmer in 2022. So you have riper wines in 2022 than 2011. And yet we harvested at similar time frames. So the bigger wines in 2022 than 2011. But This wine I think is a great expression of what makes 2022 great. Super amazing white wines that ripened ideally. I don't know when they picked this, but wow, is this packed with flavor and brightness and freshness and ripeness. A lovely wine. Really a lovely wine.
Yeah, I think this wine is actually absolutely beautiful. I love Rhone whites.
This is very compelling. This is actually the nicest Roussane I might have ever had.
I might be right there with you. I think this wine is absolutely extraordinary. And this is coming from a gentleman, he's not a huge Rhone white fan. So
no, I'm not a big Rhone white fan. In fact, I grew Roussane in my own vineyard in Rock Garden. Planted it right alongside Marsanne and Roussanne to blend in as a co-fermenter with reds for the Red of the Stones that we were growing at Rock Garden. But man, he's a bugger. This thing's a bugger to grow. It's not fun. It's like, it's a cranky little grape in the vineyard. And I'm like, you're so hard to grow. And was unimpressed with the wines. This is impressive.
Yeah, I work for a winemaker who makes some fantastic Rhone whites. I think he makes some of the best Rhone whites on the West Coast. And he loves his Marsanne when it's perfect. So Rhone varietals tend to be very big clusters. They can have tight clusters too. And that is difficult for ripening, and that's very difficult for bunch rot. Yeah. And so you can get problems when you have tight, big clusters of grapes. And so it's a little bit busier on the sorting table than some other varietals.
Yeah.
Well, I agree. This is an absolutely fantastic wine. And back to pick date. If Lisa, Josh, or Matthias is watching this video, I hope you guys do. By the way, a shout out to Gard Vintners and everything they do. Really fantastic. Lisa Lawrence has helped me so much and helped Caleb and I with so many different of the placements and reaching out to people in these AVAs. And so, Lisa, I can't say enough great things about you. I think you're the greatest woman in Washington wine. And so, please let us know when you pick this. Sorry, that was a really long sentence. Let us know when you pick this. I think that'd be super cool. If it's proprietary, completely understand. This wine's extraordinary. I mean, I am blown away. I typically lean towards Grenache Blanc or Viognier, but this Roussanne, this is incredible.
It really is. It's compact. How to describe it? It's just dense. It's like, quince paste is really compact and intense. It's like that. It's just this it's very, very dense, impactful aromatics and a very, very rich without being syrupy or heavy or brutish. It's a really, really powerful wine. So you've got a really, really good vintage for whites and really excellent growing. So what can we say about this is particularly Royal Slope. So the Royal Slope in the middle of Washington, pretty much in the middle of the box of the square, is way out in the country, and it's a really intense. There are these two sort of knife-back ridges that rise up in the middle of the state, and they're side by side like this, with these southern flanks, Royal Slope and the Wuluque Slope. And the Royal Slope to the north is covered in sand and other maybe gravel deposits. I'm not too sure exactly where these plants are growing. It could be on the thin soil top. They could be somewhere else. But clearly, overall, site selection and winemaking, there's been a really severe intensity focus on high quality in this wine. And it just defines the capacity for Washington to have beautifully ripe, really clean, really ripe fruit right in the heart of the state.
Yeah, no, I'm absolutely blown away by this wine. This is masterclass the whole way. Really, really
It
cool.
is.
So I'm going to throw out some quick data points on the Royal Slope because that's what this series is about. Established in 2020, South Central Washington, entirely within the Columbia Valley AVA, lies south of Ancient Lakes and just slightly north of Wuluque Slope. About 156,000 acres encompass the AVA, about 1,900 acres under vine. So this has quite a bit of plantings there. Defining feature is broad, generally south-facing slopes with good sun exposure. Just south of here at the Wuluque Slope, it's one of the hottest AVAs. I'm assuming Royal Slope gets its fair amount of heat as well. This is a little bit higher elevation, though, than the Wuluque Slope, and a wide range of slopes and aspects in vineyard sites. Soil type is fine sand, silt, and sandy loam. So once again, huge impact by the Missoula floods. Still a relatively new AVA. Really cool stuff. So I think that this wine is expressing what we just read there very well. I think that, Rhone varietals grow well in these kind of soils. I think that Rhone varietals are slowly becoming, in certain areas, becoming Washington's signature grape. And I don't think Washington should have a signature grape, but I do think that this site, for whatever reason it is, this is growing the best Roussanne in Washington. I'm going to go out on a limb and I'm going to say that this is the best Roussanne in Washington. This wine is really good.
It's the best one I've tasted yet, that's for sure. I'd love to. It'd be fun to go out and walk these vines. It's lovely stuff.
Caleb, obviously, during his winemaking side of things, he was going out to the vineyards and still continues to go to the vineyards on a regular basis. That's one of the reasons why he's on this podcast, guys, is because he's spent thousands of more hours in vineyards than I have, and probably drank more than I have too. I don't know. My liver might say different, but yeah. So Caleb has a relationship with Matthias, who is the viticulturalist for Gard. And when Gard took over Connor Lee, we got to know that family a lot more. Josh Lawrence, Lisa Lawrence, and then Matthias as the winemaker, the viticulturalist for Gard. He's got a lot of press lately. Let's talk a little bit about the producer here. Let me switch things up.
Yeah, down to just, they say on the label, 141 cases. So, it's an uber reserve. Get it straight from the winery. And yeah, get some of this, because this is a really killer example of a lot of things all at once. Really good winemaking. Great example of what this beautiful white, this Roussane can be. And a great example of what the 22 vintage is. So it's a worthy wine.
Yeah, I agree. And when you hit top 50 on Decanter's top U.S. wines, I think that this wine is might have some available still. I would jump on it if they still have some available. So Gard Family Vineyards, owned by Josh and Lisa Lawrence, established in 2006. So they've been around for quite a while through a lot of the development of these AVAs and a lot of different vineyards. They have a few tasting room locations: Walla Walla, Ellensburg, and Gard Public House on the Royal Slope. And then they recently bought Desert Wind Winery as well. I think Gard is really, really doing some fantastic things in Washington wine. Like I said, Lisa and Josh are probably two of the, you really can't pin them down. Josh in particular, full throttle. New ideas every single day. I think that his whole team tries to rein him in at times, but Josh is a maniacal pusher when it comes to figuring out things and getting more on the plate. And I think in a time when a lot of Washington wineries are scaling back, that the Lawrences believe in what Washington wine can do, and they're not afraid of the challenges that are happening in this industry right now, and they have the gas pedal completely down. They're buying new vineyards all the time. They're farming them fantastic. And this is 100% estate winery. And there are a handful. There's literally a handful out of the 1,200 plus producers in Washington state. There are a handful that are completely estate grown. And what that means, they farm their own fruit, they vinify their own fruit, and they don't source. This is boots on the ground all the time. And when you have a winemaker like Matthias, the kind of winemaker that Caleb is as well, we're talking about spending the majority of the season in the vineyard. They know what the plants are doing. They know what the vineyard's doing. They make the right choices along the way. This isn't a winery that goes out and says, all right, pick my grapes now, and I'm going to see what happens. Super cool, super fun stuff. I can't speak highly enough about these guys.
Yeah. I know that my understanding is that the Lawrence family has invested in other farming out there. They've been out in the Othello region, which is near the vineyard, for a while, and they really understand the landscape. So, going to sleep and waking up in the landscape is the obvious advantage of the farmer and the winemaker as well. So these wines really exemplify diligent, very thoughtful farming.
Yeah. I'm going to be honest, I'm just blown away by this wine. This wine's crazy. Yeah. I like I was saying in a different episode, I don't always follow reviewers. I don't 100% have a demigod in terms of reviewers that I'm like, oh yeah, everything's fantastic. But I do think that this review is 100% warranted. It's crazy cool. Yeah,
we can agree that sometimes reviews don't seem warranted, and this one does. Yeah.
Everything from flowering, from bud break, to growing degree days, and how it pivots and changes the wines, and harvest and pick decisions based on different vintages. That episode will be coming up down the road, but I already took a note.
That'll be fun. There's a lot of drop bombs there, like the fact that ripeness. I was told by the folks at Wine X-Ray, by Gianni, that he told me in 2022, I think it was. No, forgive me. 2015 or 2016, he said in Napa Valley, having looked at over 200 luxury producers of his clients, he said, I can't tell you any client's number, but I can tell you that the average maximum color of Cabernet in Napa Valley occurred at 22 bricks on October 1st.
That is going to sound like completely foreign knowledge to everyone, but look out for that episode. We will dive into what makes wine the greatest beverage on the planet. You know, it absolutely is.
Yeah, man.
All right, guys. Cheers to Washington Wine Month. Cheers to Gard Vintners, and cheers to Royal Slope.
Slope.